Good afternoon. We've had a great afternoon today here. About 300 students have come through. It's been an exciting day on Emmanuel's campus, and I appreciate you all coming out to participate in this alumni panel. And I think that we will find that the alumni that are here today have large resumes. They've done excellent things with their time since Emmanuel, and it's an opportunity for you to get to hear some of the things that they might say to you, some wisdom that they might give. And I hope this is useful to you. If you'd like to speak to them after the discussion today, feel free to come on up and introduce yourself. I think that would be appropriate. And my name is Brian James. I'm the Vice President for Advancement at Emmanuel, and we will take about the next 30 minutes and ask some key questions and answer some key questions that I hope will be useful to you. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Adam Beatles, who is to my left, closest to me. He's a physical therapist here in town and a member of the Board of Trustees. To his left, Beth Thomas. She is the county manager for the Franklin County and a graduate here from Emmanuel. And Preston Brazel, who is now in Virginia Beach area and working for Regent University and continuing his education, and he won't tell you, but he's an incredible golfer. So we appreciate him coming. To his left, Megan Starbuck, and she is an author and does some blogging and tremendously talented. I think you'll enjoy hearing from her. She's currently from Alabama and married to a military gentleman who is also moving around a little bit, but we're happy we're this close to home, right? You know what you told me? And Matt Farrow is also a community banker here in the area, longtime friend of the college. So with that introduction, if there's anything that you all would like to tell about yourself as you answer your first questions, please feel free to do that. And so we'll get started, okay? So the first question, and the way we'll do this is I will ask a question, and at least two of them will maybe decide if they want to field that question, if they want to answer it. So I've got about 10 questions here that we will go through, and we may ask some more questions beyond that point. So we'll get started. So the first question is, during a typical day, describe your job duties.
Good.
Can you hear me? Good, all right. So my name is Preston Braswell, and I graduated from Emmanuel in 2016. And I met my wife here. I was a senior, she was a freshman, and she's now started law school at Regent University. And I am 5 classes from finishing my Master's in Divinity, and really cherish my time here at Emmanuel. It was very formative in terms of being a part of ELI. I see Pastor Tracy is here in the audience, as well as being a part of the golf team, resident assistant. It was a wonderful time. In a typical day at Regent University as a senior admissions counselor for the School of Law, I talk to prospective law students, but in terms of furthering the law school, I also collaborate with the Dean of Admissions, Ernie Walton, who graduated from Regent University with his JD. He is also over the Center for Global Justice. We're always looking to innovate at Regent University in terms of who our applicants are, as well as what the law school is doing. And so on a day-to-day basis, the thing that I enjoy the most is just being able to hear what other students are, what the Lord has called them to do, whether that be through law school, psychology, counseling, divinity. I worked for those previous 2 schools prior to starting with the law school. Just hearing their heart and the vision that God has placed in them and helping them see that to fruition is just a very rewarding process to get them started on their way. And so that's typically what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I get to travel a lot too, so it's been a lot of fun coming back here, very nostalgic.
So I work from home, so mine will be a little bit different. A lot of my time is spent making sure I'm not getting distracted from the stuff I need to do around my house. And I also try to work around my husband's schedule because it's hard to work and be in the writing zone while he's home. So a typical day looks like not only writing the actual content, but also doing any research or even setting up interviews or contacting agents or scheduling conferences that I'm attending or watching tutorials, that kind of thing. So that's kind of a typical day at home.
Very good. Thank you both. Second question is, what part of your job do you find the most rewarding and the most challenging?
People. No, my job in public service, which is not my first choice, but it allows me to be at home. It's the best part of the job is working with people and being able to help them in any particular situation, whether it's something that might seem simple to us is very important to them. And so you have to look at it from their perspective. You have to put yourself in their shoes. It may be that they feel like they have too much rock on their road, and then I get the next call and somebody doesn't have enough rock on their road, and they have to sit there, and a lot of times they just want to hear. They want you to hear them. The worst part, what was the second part of that? Most challenging. The most challenging, I shouldn't say worse, but the most challenging part is also the people. This morning I came in with a whole long list of things I wanted to do before I headed off to my first meeting of the day. And it totally got side-railed by an hour-long conversation with a gentleman who told me that this was the worst place he's ever lived in all his life, and went through all the, while I was listening to him, it was very difficult to make any progress on that. So that's both the most rewarding and the most challenging, is dealing with the people.
My most rewarding as well is working with patients, helping people who are going through difficult times, a lot of times suffering physically, financially from being out of work, and being able to help them achieve their goals, getting back to being productive, doing the things that they love to do, and helping them through that tough period of their life is very rewarding. Most challenging, probably several posts to that chair, I guess. Don't like dealing with insurance companies for reimbursement, paperwork that's involved in that, and you do everything that they say to do, and they still deny your claim for whatever reason. Also don't really enjoy working with people who you know are trying to work the system, magnifiers of their symptoms, people who are have lawyers and are trying to get lawsuits bigger for themselves. Nothing they do medically adds up, and everything hurts. You can push the tip of their nose and their ankle hurts. I mean, it's just you feel like you're wasting your time, but that's part of the process that they have to go through. And unfortunately, you have to go through that with them. But other than that, that's not very often. But when those cases do arise, they are pretty challenging to not just be like, just leave, So.
Thank you. Third question. Why did you choose your current career or job? And was it your first choice?
I guess I'm next, right? So, next to go. It was not my first choice. I'm a commercial banker for Pinnacle Bank, and a lot of you guys have been seeing the branch over here, right behind us. And actually, when I went to school, I went here for 2 years at Emmanuel, and then I went to the Environmental School of Design at UGA. And so my first choice for career was landscape architecture. And so, and I'm gonna give a little bit of advice in the midst of this. If you don't really know what you want to do, make sure that you get some experience, some time with somebody, shadow somebody, spend some time at the business of whatever you're interested in. School is great, and school can teach you a lot, but if you end up not really enjoying what you do, then you've wasted a lot of time and money. So make sure you like what you do. But I got into it and found out about a year later it wasn't really something that suited me as much as I thought. And my next choice of a degree in career was, really my degree was business administration. Emmanuel became a 4-year school. I came back and we were, I guess, the first 4-year graduating class that year. And and my choice for that was, I knew that if I stayed in what I was in, I was going to have to go to Atlanta or some big city to get a good enough job to make a living. So it was real important for me to be here in this area, and I thought, well, that's a priority for me. I don't want to have to follow my job. I want to be able to do something to make enough money and enjoy it and to live in this area. So that's kind of why I chose the degree that I chose, because I didn't know at that time what I really wanted to do with a skill set. And so now had I to do it over again, I would have took more time off and found out what it was I really wanted to do with my life. Because you wake up every day out of that bed to go do something to make a living, and once you get a family, once you get kids, once you get all that going and you have financial responsibility to pay for those things, it's hard to change. So I just encourage, sorry I got off track with that a little bit, but just make sure what you want to do with your life, and make sure it's something that you're suited for, that you love to do, and that you do well.
Moving on. Okay. All right, so next question. Thank you, Matt. The next question is, how did your EC classes prepare you for any part of your career or your life at this point?
Take that one. So here at EC, I think a lot of people thought I was a Christian ministries major because I essentially minored in that. I don't think I had enough classes to technically minor in it, but those were my favorite classes at Emmanuel. But my actual undergrad was business administration. And with that, I see the Lord, looking retrospectively on that, Him using both degrees. As right now, I'm working on a Master's of Divinity, and really it was my time here at Emmanuel, time in classes with Dr. Looper, time in classes with Mark Trump, that really formed me spiritually, and even time outside of the classes with Mark Trump, who invited me to his house several times just to disciple me and to really become the man of God that I needed to be and needed to live up to be, and knew that God was calling me to things outside of the business world, but also using that business degree for the ministry that I hope to pursue. And just piggybacking off the earlier question and kind of tying it into this one, working at Regent was not my first choice in terms of a full-time job. Working for the School of Law was not my first choice. I was actually in the process of starting the first golf program at Regent University, but with some different financial things, it wasn't going to come out to a full-time job, so I had to find something else to support my wife. As you had mentioned, there's financial responsibility that comes along with being married and having to pay for a house and all these different things. So although that didn't work out, learning from that, I wouldn't call it a failure, but learning from that disappointment, I find that my classes at Emmanuel, particularly entrepreneurship on the business side, has really helped me in the School of Law to be innovative, to really reach for higher numbers of enrollment, but more than that, reach for the type of students that we're looking to have in the law school, people that fit our mission. Our mission at Regent is very similar to that of Emmanuel College. Regent University's mission is Christian leadership to change the world, and helping those students find a niche in where they can practice law, but do it in a way that helps those people that don't have a voice for themselves has been really great. And just learning how to help that business move forward. Entrepreneurship was excellent. And then in terms of the divinity side, Dr. Looper's Vivitor class was really awesome. And just that class probably sparked my interest the most in biblical theology, and why I pursued a Master's of Divinity. Don't know what I want to do for the ministry side of things, and really don't know what I want my long-term goal to be, but my time at Regent for the next few years while my wife is in law school is a good time to continue to figure that out, I guess. So, yeah.
So I took a creative writing class, and now that I am a writer, I've been able to see how you can kind of be secluded as a writer. And so having that community in school helped me realize the importance of it, and I've been able to kind of recreate that a little bit as I go and as I'm doing writing, because I realize the value of having that feedback from other people about my writing, and being able to see how it improves and helps me to continue to grow and that kind of thing. So that was one of them, and probably the main thing. But I also took a Greek class. So Spanish was like the one that they recommended, because I did have to have a language course. But I learned a lot about like the Bible and everything through the Greek class. And I was also in there with different students than my major, and so that was kind of nice, getting a different perspective and everything. But I also did learn a lot about the English language as well, because I was studying a different language and having to like compare and everything like that. So those are really helpful classes for me. I asked if I could do Greek as my language, and they were like, well, no English major has done that, but sure. So kind of be willing to ask if there's something that you're wanting to try like that.
Excellent. That was the class I was always scared to take.
I was scared too. I was scared of that class too, and so I think we had like 30 students start out, and then by the end there were like 6 of us. So maybe don't take it lightly, but you can do it.
Excellent. Okay, next question is, what extracurricular activities or professional development training would you suggest to students who are in the latter part of their baccalaureate programs that are about ready to head toward the job market, that were beneficial to you?
Well, in my field, there are a lot of certifications that you can go for. Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, which is called a CSCS. A lot of kinesiology majors can sit for the Athletic Training Board certification. There are a lot of other continuing education classes that can be taken to acquire more knowledge in different subsets of therapy. Also, I think doing volunteer work is always good for us to do through our local church. Missions, of course, always putting yourself in someone else's shoes who, didn't win the lottery like we did and got to be born in America, and see what people outside the country have to endure a lot of the times that we have no idea is something that we take for granted in that maybe off year between undergraduate and graduate school. Get a lot of those life experiences that you have the opportunity to get later after you're married and other financial responsibilities begin to weigh on you. Do that now while you have the opportunity and the freedom to do that. And then, it sounds cliche, but really just read books. A lot of leadership books that I've read have been really instrumental in forming a lot of my relational skills. A lot of Andy Stanley books are great. John Maxwell books are great. And watch podcasts and those type of things. Just do a lot of learning of nonverbal communication skills, picking up on body language, on perception, people that you're talking with. If you can't read people's body language or know or perceive how a conversation is going, and you're just kind of in your own little bubble, I don't think you're very effective or as effective as you could be. So some things like that I think are great life skills to do and work on in that year or whatever time frame after school, before your first job, or after school, before graduate school.
One thing I would say that you could work on is not necessarily an extracurricular activity or any type of certification, but one of the key things that I've seen in both of my careers, I was in finance and then I switched over to public service, is communication. You mentioned nonverbal communication, but I've seen the most brilliant person. I've been sitting in a boardroom And the guy was sitting right beside me, and he far surpassed me in knowledge and knowing what he was talking about. But we had such a good relationship, he just couldn't communicate. I was the big mouth, and he was the brains. And so we learned this great symbiotic relationship, and he'd whisper something in my ear, and I'd discuss it to the board. And he's never been able to get past that point because he's failed to be able to communicate. When I hire new people in, one of their failing points is not being able to write a letter, not being able to compose anything outside of a text message. And trust me, I text with all my employees, and that's okay. But then when we turn and communicate with someone else, it's the communication skills. So put yourself in situations that might challenge you. You've spent 4 years looking at your major, but put yourself in a public speaking section. Go in and learn how to introduce yourselves. I excel in things like, I love this. I love public speaking. You put me in the back of the room with somebody and I panic. I don't do good in the small group. So I went down south. My daughter does pageants, and she does the same thing. She loves public speaking. She can't do good one-on-one. So she does those to practice. In her practice thing, I've had to practice what I preach. And I go down to South Georgia, and before you know it, I'm dancing on a chair. Literally dancing on a chair, and it's actually caught on video. I would never do that up here in Northeast Georgia, but I put myself in a situation that challenged me. I made friends, I introduced myself, I did anything to practice what I preached. When my child had her first interview a couple of months ago, the lady said, "You are the best interview I've ever had." I mean, it's just a job at Tanger, but still, she got that compliment because she put herself through something that she would not normally do in the pageant. So find a way to hone in that communication aspect.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, during a job interview, how should we best respond to questions related to our education?
Wow, that's a good question. Best related to the education, you know, the employer's going to want to hear what applies to what they're doing. So, you know, when they ask you about your education, of course, that's your experience that you've got within you from your college experience. So just, I would focus on the points of what you learn that's related to their field. So whatever you're doing. So, and beyond that, I really don't know, but just try to best identify with the employer as best as you can. And I think Beth made good points about being ready to communicate well. You know, of course, when we go for a job interview, good posture, good communication, let them know you have a good attitude and you're very teachable and can learn quickly and very accountable. And so.
I would say one quick note about that too is to ensure that you've dressed well for the position that you're in. Even at Region, I applied for a graduate resident assistant position, and they take even that very seriously in terms of, you know, some people came in and, you know, nice khaki shorts and maybe a polo, but then there were other people that came in a full suit with a tie and their hair was nice, and those were the people that got the job. So dress up.
Good.
Can I add to that quickly?
Yes, please.
Like he was saying, kind of dress according to the job, because I was always told, like, dress up, but I also applied for outdoor jobs, and so if I was going there to tour the campus for the interview and I was in heels, they'd probably be like, does she know what this job is? Like, is she prepared for it? So keep that in mind, but I also didn't wear like flip-flops and shorts. Like, I still wore pants, but I was able to do that tour and everything, but I wasn't in like a t-shirt and that kind of thing, which is what we would wear at that job normally. So dress up, but maybe keep in mind what your job is.
Good. Thank you. All right. So I think you got to think outside the box on the next question just a little bit. All right, because the culture is changing, and so if someone had to find a job in your area today, where would they look? It would be a different question than maybe, or a different answer to the question than it would have been 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But if they had to do that today, to look for a job in your field, where would they go and how would you approach it if you had to do it today?
In the field of higher education, you guys already have something on your resume already as being undergraduate students. So one of the best things to do would be to create a LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn at this time, I would go ahead and put all of the organizations that you're involved in here at Emmanuel College. I mean, extracurriculars, it could be anything from disc golf to being a part of ELI, going to those ELI events, being an athlete, any of those things would definitely assist you in that. Continue to update that LinkedIn, as the search engine will give you job opportunities that are available and suggestions. And when those suggestions come up, just go out and research it. You may be qualified for something that you might have not thought of otherwise. So yeah, LinkedIn is a good resource.
In the government, sometimes we're very advanced and sometimes we're really far behind, depending on what aspect of it is. A lot of people now are posting on not even on their own websites, but there's groups and organizations. For example, there's probably 150 jobs posted right now for all local governments in the state of Georgia. Anything from being able to operate a lawnmower to a county manager or city manager. So it's a one-stop shop for us in local government. But there's also other aspects of it. So it's your websites, it's your, for smaller organizations, if you want to go to a small business, I don't know if they use some of the other websites as much, but check theirs. If there's something specific you want, go and talk to the person. A lot of times we don't have the jobs open right then, but you remember it later on. So if you're really interested in something, go to the people. Say, hey, my name is Beth, I'd like to introduce myself. That it may not open a door then, but it gets your foot there. I hired one girl because she was on homecoming court, and inside her bio said a little sliver of something that caught my eye, and I thought, next time I have an internship, I'm going to contact her. It was one of the best hires that I've ever had in terms of her work ethic. But go and make yourself available.
All right, here's a loaded question. If you had to do college all over again, what would you do different?
I know y'all just heard from me, but I'm going to take this one because my experience is very different, I think, probably from a lot of yours. Maybe not so much Matt. I got married 2 weeks out of high school. I'm still married, just don't judge by that. That was 100 pounds ago. But I got married 2 weeks out of high school. And so my college experience was working 55 hours a week to make rent, coming here and doing a full-time load. I just told them earlier that both times I walked across the stage for my associates and my 4-year degree, I was pregnant. So I can remember sitting in the Old Testament class going, so I would change not taking an 8 a.m. class when you're 5 months pregnant, or else it's not going to go very well for your grades. So what would I do it all over again? I would. I think I would take more time to really soak it in. A lot of times we just learn the material. We just learn, whatever we have to learn for the test. And I failed back then to take a step back and say, I need to learn beyond that. I need to put it in, because I might use it later on. But my last 2 years of college was actually done independently. I never showed up for any class. God put certain people in your life, and Emmanuel College and some professors here were some of those people. If it weren't for them, I would not have my 4-year degree. So if I had to do it all over again, yeah, I'd wait on having a kid, that's for sure. And I'd be able to have the experience. So I don't have the experience that you guys have, so soak it in. These friendships that you forge, I don't get to say that I have those. I envy you for that. So really make friends. Don't just consider it. Don't waste your time away. Cherish it for what it is.
Oh, very good. Awesome. I think the main thing I would do differently would be very similar in that not take it for granted. and pay closer attention to what was really being taught in a lot of the classes that were not in my major, but still appreciate and really invest in those relationships. But still today, some of my closest friends and lifelong relationships were formed here at Emmanuel, and definitely wouldn't change that part. So.
One thing I would have changed would have been to have a consistent mentor. I had several one-on-one meetings with like Pastor Chris and Pastor Tracy and a few other professors, as I mentioned, Mark Trump, but I never had that consistent voice in my life, and my parents were stationed in Germany. I was kind of here by myself and just learning how to do this young adult life on my own. The regret I have is not having that consistent mentor throughout my undergrad career.
If you were hiring a college graduate, what skills would you be looking for?
I actually typed up an answer to this one. So I have a few questions that I would like to ask them to find out. One, are they genuinely caring for others? I'd like to see their relational skills and how they interact with other people. Often ask people if they played a team sport. That lets me know that they had to get along with people collectively for a goal, people they may not actually get along with, but if they're your teammate, you're part of a team, you know how to work together. One of the big things that really irks me, and I'm not an English major by any means, is grammatical competence. I cannot stand the homophones being misspelled or misused, like there. All the time gets misspelled. They apostrophe re whenever it's their home. Like that's their home, not they are home. Just little things like that. That's probably my thing. So anyway, grammatical competence is a big one, and you know that people I've worked with have master's degrees still misuse those. Are they able to handle constructive criticism, or are they too thin-skinned? We all learn, I think, better in a community where we have colleagues and we have people who are further down the road from us, more wisdom, more experience, who need to be able to speak to us and us be able to listen and not be like, whatever, you know, who are you, think you can tell me that? Those kind of attitudes don't fly with me. And then, are you punctual? Are you on time? Are you going to do what you tell me you're going to do? Integrity.
Where I work at, you can have a really good education, but if you can't communicate well, it really doesn't go very far. So communication is really important. If you've if you're well suited for the job and you can solve problems well, because that's what employers look for, folks who can solve their problems. And so if you can do that and communicate it well, you do pretty well in the business world. And good attitude, can't say enough about that. A good attitude will go way further than a skill set will many times. So good attitude, work ethic, being able to get in there, work hard, not get flustered. You know, a lot of times, you know, you get a problem, you get a crisis, you can kind of flip out and not take it well, but to be able to stay calm, and when things are kind of going haywire, you know, just keep that calm presence about you and solve that problem one thing at a time, and have patience in the job. That's a big thing. And so, but really the biggest thing to me is attitude and communication. I think are big in the job world.
As I said before, I had 2 careers. my first career, I started at the lowest of the low. Again, I was working my way through college. So I started I put in for a mail clerk. By the time I got my degree, and within 3 years of that, by the age of 27, I was an executive director of financial reporting for $1 billion company. Up underneath me, I consolidated 460 business units' financial statements. I was responsible for, my team of analysts was responsible for audits, tax, debt service reporting on hundreds of millions of dollars worth. Now I work in the government sector and I hire people that barely have a high school education. But working from the bottom up and dealing with people who have much higher levels of education than I do, and then on the far spectrum of it, the one pet peeve I always have is you're not too good to work. And I've always said I will never ask my employees to do something I'm not willing to do myself, and that does include scraping poo off of a bathroom stall. I have done that. I have cleaned up the dumpsters. Even today, in my 6-inch high heels, I will deliver Meals on Wheels when staff calls out. I've helped my road department pick up the limbs, and it's not just a show for me, it's really keeping me humble. When I had a team of 16 analysts, if we had to get a budget book done, I didn't care if you had a master's, a doctorate, a CPA, whatever it was. We were there at 5 o'clock in the morning. All of us were making copies. We were punching holes. You're never too good for the work assigned to you, and never use the words, "It's not my job." Even if you're hired to do something, always be willing to put your hand in. It goes a long way. Bosses remember. They remember when it's time for promotions. They remember when it's time for raises. They remember who was there in the fire to help them out.
I was just going to add a willingness and ability to learn, which he touched on, but also someone who's trustworthy, someone who's going to make me and the company look good, and I'm not worried about, like, are they stealing from me, whether it's money or let me work as little as possible for the amount of time that I'm here, that kind of thing. Just someone who's putting in that effort and not having to watch them constantly or wonder what are they doing behind my back kind of thing. So someone who is trustworthy and dependable.
Okay, last question. Okay, the EC mission is to prepare students to become Christ-like disciples who integrate faith, learning, and living for effective career, service, and scholarship. And so I'm looking for an example that you may have about a chance or opportunity that you had to be a Christian or to be Christ-like in the workplace.
So I think it's a choice daily to inject your faith into certain situations. With me, it's a daily thing because I'm dealing with suffering people hour after hour. And so being an encouragement to them, helping them to see that this is just a dark chapter. They're going to get better. Keep pushing through. Eventually I do desire to hear "well done" from the Father for the part that He's asked me to play. And that part is to encourage people, to help people who are going through tough times. And so a lot of times people just want to be heard. And so listening a lot is a great skill set. Listening well is a great skill set. And you can certainly interject your faith into those conversations when you feel that's appropriate and when you feel the person would be receptive, and go as deep into the discussion as anybody's willing to go. And once again, that's that relational communication skill that you need to be able to acquire to know how far to go, or to sense that they've had bad experiences or other things where you can maybe tap into those topics as well. But yeah, it's a daily choice, and we're called to do that, and we're called to be bold for Christ, and doing that every day with our vocation.
Okay, so I often felt like the weirdo because of my Christianity, and I was okay with that. You know, coworkers would be going out, doing sinful things or even illegal things. And I'm an introvert anyway, so I'll stay home by myself and I'm fine with it. But they'll notice that and they'll still respect you. And it also went the other way. I would see them doing that, but I'm also like, wow, they're still a really good worker and they're still really funny and they're really nice. Or, you know, you can see all of these other skills that they have. And so it does go both ways. But I also had, like, sometimes you feel like it doesn't make a difference or people don't notice. So there was one instance where my coworker was talking and she's like, yeah, my friend on Facebook is posting all this stuff and she's just a goody two-shoes and talking about how she's helping these orphans in this other country. And I'm like, oh, you must hate my Facebook. And she's like, no, but you're actually a good person. And I'm like, oh, like, it's nice that you can actually tell, but I feel like I'm a horrible person sometimes. So, but people will recognize that, as you said, like, it's a daily thing. And if you're showing that, then they can still see it and you can still have that relationship. And within my writing work, I try not to be where, oh, someone who's not a Christian is going to be put off by churchy terms or whatever, because I believe that the principles that are in the Bible and that have helped me can help non-Christians as well. So that's another way that I'm able to use that, but still, in some ways, I can have that if it comes up or something.
So, Ed, working for a Christian university, it's pretty easy to share your faith because, you know, all of the values that Christian school you're able to share unashamedly. As an admissions counselor, I speak to, 10s, 20s, 30s, sometimes 40 to 50 people a day. Sometimes for just a few minutes, other times the conversations can last about an hour to an hour and a half. I remember in January of this past year, one student or prospective student had called in interested in pursuing a Christian ministries degree online with Regent. And I could just hear that she was distressed. I could hear that she had a lot of apprehension in pursuing a degree. She wanted to share some things with me, but was kind of beating around the bush in terms of the application process. And we spoke for probably an hour and a half, and about at the 30-minute mark, she just began to sob on the phone with me and was just expressing all of these things to me that she had gone through in terms of rent that she wasn't able to make, and she was also confessing like some sin, and she felt like she was unworthy to pursue this Christian ministries degree because of her past. And while I was on the phone with her, I'm supposed to be talking business in a way. I'm supposed to be talking about the application process, what you need to do to apply and to get into the university. And I just felt the Holy Spirit say, listen, put that down for a second. It doesn't matter that you're supposed to, get 10 to 12 enrolls a month. That's not what you're here for. In this moment, you need to be the voice of God telling her that she is worthy and that she needs a touch from the Lord. So while I was on the phone with her, Regent is connected with CBN. So a lot of times CBN is handling these conversations with prayer and stuff and helping people who are going through tough situations. But in that moment, I was like, God, use me. And she gave her life, rededicated her life to the Lord while she was on the phone with me. And then we had a 30-minute conversation thereafter. And then she called in like a week or two later just to check up in with me. And it was just one of the most humbling experiences that I've had in my job as an admissions counselor. So, yeah, praise the Lord for that.
Well, good. Excellent. Thank you all so much for your time today and for making the effort to come all the way to Emmanuel College. Some of you have come from quite a distance, and all of you have come from extremely busy schedules to be here with us today. And we greatly appreciate your time and your testimony and your example and who you are as Emmanuel College graduates. And we applaud you for that today and honor you. We appreciate your time. Would you give them all an outstanding Emmanuel College? Thank you guys. Are there any questions?